Before we dive into some of the more specific topics, we are going to take a look at what the obesity and physical inactivity epidemics are. From there, we will be able to build on what we know and apply it to some related topics. So, what is the obesity epidemic? Well, let's start with what obesity is. Obesity refers to having an excessive amount of body fat that can lead to health problems. This is of greatest concern when the fat is concentrated in the abdomen near important internal organs. Despite growing recognition of the problem, obesity rates have continued to increase over the past couple of years. It is estimated that 34% of adults and 15 to 20% of children are obese. The epidemic has slowly risen over time from a small, consistent degree of positive energy balance. Obesity has been shown to affect most bodily systems and is a precursor for type 2 diabetes, hypertension, coronary heart disease, dyslipidemia, and cancer. It is the prime cause behind the leading causes of death in the U.S., cardiovascular diseases, and cancer. Addressing obesity requires an understanding of energy balance, which will be discussed later in the presentation. Overweight and obesity can be identified by measuring body mass index or BMI, which is weight in kilograms divided by height squared in meters. Table 1 shows the categories of BMI and their relationship to obesity. A healthy BMI range is 18.5 to 24.9 kilograms per meter squared, and obesity is defined as greater than or equal to 30 kilograms per meter squared. The table also depicts waist circumference to evaluate disease risks for individuals. Figure 1 depicts the trends in overweight, obese, and extremely obese. All of these categories have increased over the past 3+ decades, indicating a gradual but rapid increase. Now that we have looked at the obesity epidemic, let's take a closer look at the physical inactivity epidemic. Only 1 in 4 adults and 1 in 5 adolescents in the U.S. meet physical activity guidelines for aerobic and muscle strengthening activities. One of the main causes of this epidemic is the increase in sedentary lifestyles and less participation in leisure time physical activity. Physical inactivity is the worst drug and can lead to the development of many chronic diseases, such as diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, osteoporosis, and cancer.
Aerobic muscle strengthening and bone strengthening physical activity are important because even in moderately intense level, it can slow the loss of bone density that comes with age. For example, a hip fracture is a serious health condition that can have life-changing negative effects, especially if you're an older adult. Going off of the table provided on the previous slide, it has been reported that only 35 to 44% of adults 75 years or older are physically active, and 28 to 34% of adults aged 65 to 74 are physically active. Those numbers are alarming because physical inactivity was identified as the 4th leading risk factor for prevention of the National Coverage Determination, preceded only by tobacco use, hypertension, and high blood glucose levels, and accounting for more than 3 million preventable deaths globally in 2010. This is a large problem affecting youth as well. Research has shown that children now spend more than 7.5 hours a day in front of a screen, for example, a TV, video games, or a computer. This is time children could use to participate in physical activity, but are instead remaining physically inactive. Technology is believed to play a large role in the increase of physical inactivity and is shown throughout the decades. Spending time on social media and technology has shown that those with more screen time have been shown to have increased obesity, reduced physical activity, and decreased health.
This chart shows the physical activity recommendations outlined by the American College of Sports Medicine, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and many other organizations. It is recommended that adults get 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity physical activity or 75 minutes per week of vigorous intensity physical activity. In addition, it is recommended that they get 2 or more days of the week of muscle strengthening activities. For adolescents, it is recommended 60 minutes per day of aerobic physical activity and 3 or more days of the week for muscle strengthening activities.
So, after discussing the obesity and physical activity epidemics, is it more important to be physically fit or to live at a healthy weight? While both factors are definitely important, studies have shown that level of fitness is a far better predictor of mortality than obesity. As a matter of fact, an obese person who is physically active is more likely to experience good health than someone who is lean but physically inactive. This is because physical activity can act as a sort of counterbalance for the negative effects that obesity can cause. This should serve as an encouragement for the everyday person, especially a busy college student. You don't need to be training 24/7 or starving yourself on a diet every day to see benefits towards your health. Just 2.5 hours a week of moderate physical activity is all that is necessary to see an impact. So this table is showing what I previously said, that an obese person who is physically active is more likely to live a long, healthy life than someone at the ideal BMI who is physically inactive. As a matter of fact, if you look at an active and inactive person, both with the same BMI, the person that is inactive will face greater than double the risk of all-cause mortality. This further supports the claim that overall physical fitness does more for your health than your overall body weight.
The obesity epidemic has been established within the U.S. population as a result of an energy imbalance that comes from overeating. With it being so far cheaper and easier to eat calorically dense foods that lack good nutrition, such as a hamburger from a fast food restaurant, Americans are eating at a caloric rate much higher than their body actually requires. This ends up leading to an excess in calories that become stored as fat. A pressing issue, positive energy imbalance has put millions of Americans at risk for negative health consequences down the road, including hypertension, dyslipidemia, and type 2 diabetes, all due to the excessive body fat associated with obesity. This brings up the question of whether or not as many people as there should be truly understand the concept of energy balance, and if they do, then what makes it hard for people to put into practice. Credited by the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, this chart provides a visual representation of the estimated calories required for various people based on gender, age, and activity level. One unfortunate aspect of energy balance is that there isn't a daily base caloric requirement for each individual, but instead it varies person to person, depending on how much someone weighs, how tall they are, how physically active they are, and etc. Figuring out exactly what amount of calories you should eat every day to lose, gain, or maintain weight is likely the easiest step in the process. A common struggle many people face comes from an overall lack of knowledge in regard to what proportions of calories should come from carbohydrates, protein, and fats, and then how to reach those daily limits through eating correctly, as well as implementing proper dieting procedures. For some, a diet of 30% proteins, 20% fats, and 50% carbohydrates might be best, but others might need more or less of these macronutrients, depending on varying factors. Consistently meeting these guidelines would certainly attribute towards losing or gaining weight if a caloric deficit or surplus is maintained over an extended period of time.